All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of the RPG Backlog. We are here for episode 4 of our deep dive into Final Fantasy XII, which is almost becoming like Final Fantasy XII therapy, where we talk to each other about the things we didn't know how to do, and then we figure it out and play better the next time we play. I don't know if that's been your experience.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment.
So this episode, we're actually tackling quite a bit. We got quite a bit of time to play. And again, if you're following along with the Neo Seeker guide, there are several chunks in the guide that we did. The journey to Jahara, and then Golmore Jungle and the Eyrut Village, down to the Henne Mines, back to Golmore Jungle, and then Paramina Rift and St. Bur-Omisace, and then the Stilshrine of Miriam. So we are tackling those pieces. And just a quick rundown of the story. Last we left, the big old Empire ship blew up because of the power of the Dawn Shard. And Princess Ash realizes, fuck, this is a weapon I can use against the Empire. So the story goes that they need to bring it to the village of the Gareth, who are knowledgeable in magicite. So they're hoping that they have the answers. And on the way, before they go, Balthier's like, you want me to come along? I need some payment. And so he gets a ring from Ash, which is a down payment until there's something better that he likes more in the future. So in Jahara, the tribe, the chief tells Ash, we can't help you. This thing doesn't have any power. And then when they're there, they meet up with Larsa, who is trying to get Ash to come with him to Mount Bur-Omisace. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. What do you think?
I'll go with it.
Yeah. These proper nouns in this game are very hard.
They don't make the namings very easy at all.
No, they do not. But the idea here is going to Mount Bur-Omisace. Larsa is talking about how there's a holy person there who hopefully will help you get on the Dalmascan throne and make some peace with the Empire. So that is a thing that's going on. And in the background, we have information from the Empire where Vayne is having some sort of dealings with the Senate, talking about the Emperor, who is his father, and some worries about where the throne's going to go, if it's going to go to Larsa, if it's going to go to him. So he has Gabronth spy on Vayne. One of the senators the Emperor has Gabronth spy on Vayne to see what his intentions are, and this whole political intrigue, kind of like these little interstitial things going on. But for us, we've got Larsa in our party, and we go to the jungle, the Golmore Jungle. We're trying to... I forget exactly what we're going to the jungle for. Do you remember why we're going to the Golmore Jungle?
That was the only path over to the rift, which was then the path to the mountain. But you had to get through. You had to get the blessing of the Vera to even get through the jungle.
Yeah, so that's basically there's like 3. Every time you go up to the barrier, like you can't get through here, and about the 3rd time, then Fran's like, all right, let me open this fucking pathway to my village where I've been exiled from, and we learned a little bit more about Fran there, having been exiled from the Viera for basically. Joining the world of the humans. But she's there looking for her sister.
Third time?
Mizurn?
The 3rd time? She did it the first time I talked to it.
No, not for me. It was 3 times.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting that it was the first time for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was 3 times, and the 3rd time was like, all right, here, let's go here.
Huh.
So I'm wondering, was it really the first time for you?
Yeah, I didn't. I went up to one time, clicked on it. They did some talking, and then Freya said we have to we have to go talk to the village of the Vera, and we started walking back out, and she walked over and opened up the pathway, and I was like, okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, it was absolutely the 3rd time for me. Click on one, it's like you can't go through here. Click on another one, you can't go through here. And the 3rd time, when you do that, then she's like, all right, let's go to this village.
Oh, did you find 3 different wall barriers?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I've only found 1 barrier, so I guess you just had to go to the...
Like multiple times, or what?
No, I went to the first barrier I went to, so that might mean that you just had to hit the right barrier.
The right barrier? Oh, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, the barriers you can't get through, and then she's like, "All right, we need to go figure out what's going on, looking for my sister." But her sister Mjrn is not there. MJRN. I assume that's how you say it.
Yeah,
She has several sisters there, basically.
yeah. I think they basically consider everyone a sister.
I was wondering that because if it was like a biological sister, just like we're all sisters. And there are no dudes there, right? They're all
No,
ladies there.
Vera are always female.
Interesting. Okay, I have questions
Well,
about reproduction, but maybe we'll.
they're born of the wood.
Yeah.
But maybe they changed that in Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, because this is 14.
Well, no, because the Vera is a playable race in Final Fantasy. Wait, 14, 15.
Oh,
14.
that's no 14. Yeah, because I chose that character when I played 14 a little bit.
Yeah, and I can't remember though if they finally allowed them to be male as well. But as I recall, originally they were always female.
Interesting. So Fran's there with her sisters looking for Mjrn, and they're like, "Oh, just listen to the woods. You can find out where your sister is." And they know that Fran's been away for so long she can't hear the wood anymore. So then they just tell her she's at the local magicite mine, which is the Henne Mines, which is where you head next, trying to find your sister. And when you find your sister, if I recall correctly, she's going a little crazy with the nethicite in her hand. But when it falls out of her hand, it breaks, and the spell kind of breaks. And then they kind of reunite for a little bit, go back. And then when they bring Miriam back to the Eyrut Village, they get something called Linta's Tear to break those magical barriers and move on. So as you said, it's a pathway to the mountain, Mount Bur-Omisace. They get there, and Larsa has like a secret plan to unite Princess Ashe with Al Cid Margrace, which is from the ruling house of Rosaria. And they talk back and forth, and it ends up being that they're not going to do that thing. They're not going to get together and pursue peace in that way. We cut to interstitial about the Empire again. The Emperor's dead. Vane killed the Emperor, blames the Senate, and then one senator or one judge is, I believe that judge was a senator, but I could be wrong. Judge is like, this is all fucked up, and then Vane wants that judge killed and has Gabronth do it. Gabronth hesitates, but the judge, which is Drace or Drace, basically says, "Kill me, do it, take care of Larsa." And then, are we at the end? No, we are not at the end yet. At that point, Ashe, instead of Larsa's plan to marry and pursue peace with the Empire, she's like, "Fuck it, we're gonna go to war. We're gonna take these folks down." So they're going to. Let's see here. What happened next? She's like, "No, we're gonna go beat the Empire," and then somehow we get to the Sword of Kings, but I can't remember how we got there.
The dreamer told him that that the sword was designed to destroy the nethicite, but the Dynast King gave it to the former dreamer of his time period, as opposed to keeping it for himself.
Right, that's right. The holy man in Mount Bur-Omisace is like, "Yeah, that sword's gonna break the nethicite. Go get it," and it's in the Stilshrine of Miriam, which is where our pathway ends here. I went a little further and came back and beat the boss of the section, and you're just outside of the Stilshrine. But that's a story so far, and there's like so much to it in this section, and this is where the story started to open up for me and become much more interesting. What did you think of it?
The story is what's keeping me playing this game.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. And this is kind of par for the course for most Final Fantasy games from my experiences. Their story is usually solid, and there's a lot of twists and turns in it, and this is no exception.
It's really dense for how I feel like how little there is of like cutscenes or like narrative story told to you. There's just so many twists and turns and so many pieces being set up on the chessboard.
That is actually a valid point. It's really amazing how much they can shove into so little by way of actual cutscenes. Now that I think about it, the first few hours of the game, it felt like there was a lot more, but it's really slowed down with how much they take away and show just a cutscene.
Yeah, I feel like the way that this game is progressing, we have, I'm going to make up numbers here, but like here's a 3-minute cutscene and then here's 3 hours of gameplay. And that the 3 minutes sort of contextualizes the 3 hours, but I sort of wish there was a better balance of more story and less grinding or less, I don't know, moving through several of these areas just kind of feels like rote, running through, killing the same enemies, leveling up, moving on. And I haven't found a lot of engagement moving through until I've run into like optional bosses, and I ran into an optional Esper that wrecked my shit, and that made me start having to really like thoughtfully engage with the battle system. Otherwise, I'm sort of on autopilot because my characters are pretty strong for the area, and I'm not having too much trouble taking down bosses or taking down enemies.
So it's kind of funny that you say that. So your comment last week, and this was in chat, you didn't bring it up in the when we were talking about it, but you were like, "Oh, I figured out what max LP and max skill is." And I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, this option, and it gives you max, license points or max skill right at the door." And you're like, "Oh, I want to do this just to see what it is." I was like, And then Anthony being like, "Oh yeah, it's fine for getting through the mid game, but it will do you zero good in the late stages of the game." And I was sitting there thinking about it, going, I do not enjoy the gameplay. I do not enjoy the combat at all. I enjoy the story, so fuck it. I am going to use these things. And so my job boards are maxed across the board.
How does it trivialize the combat?
Because I have 12 gambit slots on each one of my characters right now. Because of all that, I have turned around, and yes, combat is on autopilot right now for me. I have to do next to nothing in most combats. So for example, I don't know which boss it was. Maybe it's, you made the comment in chat about how you had to turn off the speed, the 2 times whatever.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's one of those bosses that we went over in this section, but this whole section I never once had to turn that off or the autopilot. My characters just blew through it.
Oh, so it was never too fast for you to handle any of those bosses. You just melted them basically.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Combination of using that and the mist abilities, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found the mist abilities, now that I've got a better handle on how that works. There was an optional Esper that I ran into, whose name is escaping me right now, but it was in the Xenophite Caverns or something caverns.
The ones that Anthony was saying were like a little bit higher level than what we should have been in or whatever?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
So it was like 5 times that I had to attempt that optional Esper until I beat it. And the way that, I think it kind of was a nice moment for me because I had been just kind of shredding things up until then, to kind of get stopped and rethink, how am I using my gambits? How am I using them interplaying with the mist? Where I would come in and use a spell that the enemy was weak to. I think it was ice, to kind of bring the health down to probably a third off, and then start using my mists. And I started chaining my mists where, using the shuffle button once they had run out to kind of try to trigger a new one. And then when that was done, the health was down to like 20%. And for the first 4 fights, it would turn into perfect defense, where whenever I hit it, it would not lose any health. So I just swapped in one party member who had more mists, and then just got lucky with the shuffle that new charge for my other depleted teammates basically would pop up, and then I was able to melt the rest of the health bar. So those mists, man, it probably took off over 3/4 of the health bar. Now that I've learned how to link them together. Also, I have levels 1, 2, and 3 on most, but not all of the characters. And then there's like a sequence. There's 9, 8, 9, 10. 10, I think. 10 different like secret mist abilities. When we talked last time about Torrent or Inferno or Cataclysm.
Yep.
Those are 3 of the 10 that you trigger by using different amounts of level 1, 2, or 3. And I guess I'm not playing on PlayStation. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because it probably has the achievement on Steam as well. But there's an achievement to get all 10, which is apparently a little difficult to do by the time you get to the upper levels. But anyway, yeah, those mists come in handy. But I'm curious about the LP because I did the gill. I have max gill, so every time I get to a new shop, I'm able to buy all the equipment that I need, which I think has contributed to it being a little bit more, little easier for me going through because the equipment is decent. But I didn't think it would contribute that much because I don't have a lot of the license board filled out. But it's
Yeah, the equipment does make a difference too, especially at this point in time, because you see a noticeable jump in the attack power whenever you update the weapons, at the very least.
Yeah, I think that's probably having a pretty good effect. That plus the armor, I think, is making it. I see myself blocking or parrying a lot more.
Yeah, same. But the one thing that I will say that the job boards help you with is not so much. I don't really know if it helps you with power a whole lot. I mean, it does because obviously there's like the battle lore or whatever that gives you increased attack power and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I think
and the HP.
The HP is the bigger help, in my opinion, because it gives you more leeway. But the other thing that I think it also helps is that when you get to those new villages, you're like, okay, I'm going to buy all the gear. You already have the licenses to actually use it, because that's another issue that you could run into if you haven't done enough of the job boards.
And there's a couple of pieces that I picked up that I'm like, oh, that's an accessory 14 or whatever, that I'm not there yet. And I've resisted using the LP just because I'm having a fun time having to figure out what to do when I don't have like a perfect combination of items and stuff that I can use yet.
Right.
But I can see. I was wondering when Anthony made that comment about how it doesn't help you in late game. I'm wondering if that is referring to the optional late game stuff as opposed to the story stuff. Because, I don't know, we're pretty close to the end. We're probably 10, 12 hours away from the end.
Really? We're that far through it already? Holy, I didn't think that. I don't know.
Yeah, when I was talking to Anthony, talking about this through the end, it's something like 15 hours or so before I started the road to Arcades. If you're just going straight through. And then this part apparently is like a really long part, according to the guides that I've read. But I'm getting through it pretty quickly. So, I don't know. The leveling is coming along. I was worried about later, in the back half where I don't know if you're doing the same thing, but I'm rotating my characters out so they're all exactly the same level.
Oh, 100%. Like, every time I get my party members, so I have them in groups of 3 based upon who has healers. So I have 2 solid healers at the very least.
Yeah.
So 3, when they go up a level, I drop all those 3 out, put the other 3 in, and keep it going, because I learned my lesson back in the day in high school with Final Fantasy VII.
Right, where you haven't leveled up your other characters, then you are just fucked late game.
Oh, yeah. The final boss requires you to use 2 full parties, and it's like, well, I've only been using 3 characters the whole time, and they're like level 90, and like, oh wait, all my other characters are level 40. And oh look, the boss is level 60 something, so he's just like crapping all over the second party. And if one party completely wiped, you're SOL. Like, the game's over, because you can't do enough damage to get beyond it. So because of that, now with any Final Fantasy game, if you can have multiple, if it's easy to switch out characters, I'm like, it must be intentionally done so you can keep them all together, because there's probably going to be a fight at some point in time where it requires us to use all 6 of them.
There's been quite a few times actually, not with bosses so much now, but previously for sure. But then these optional, either the hunts or the optional Esper, where I just have to rotate my other characters in. And if I didn't have 3 other characters who were leveled up equally, I would be totally fucked. So it's been nice to be able to do that. And I like how it lets you switch it out so quickly. Like, there's very few times where they're locked out and you can't switch them. And if they are, you just have to wait it out.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out, like, I understand if they're like disabled, but there's been a couple other times where the character is not disabled and I still can't swap them out, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why am I unable to swap them? And I don't know if it's a certain time in the fight that's like, nope, no swapping, or there's something else that I haven't picked up on.
I haven't figured that out either. The only thing that I've seen is that the action bar, like, obviously when they haven't done their action yet, you can't swap them out. But then there's been cases where they have completed their action and they're still unswappable.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just me. I thought
No,
maybe
it's
I
me
was just
too.
being a goober and like, oh, you could easily figure this out if you just pay attention. But I was sitting going, I'm not finding the common denominator here as to why I can't do it.
I will still agree that you probably figured it out by paying attention, but I would just say that neither of us are figuring it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say kind of like, I don't know, switching party leader or being able to target your own party to attack them like you did. You're like, oh yeah, you can do this. Or like my smart plan for beating the demon wall that I quite obviously we discovered I was doing incorrectly, so I brute forced my way through it, and you were able to actually do my trick and get through it the proper way.
Yeah, because I think it's so easy to miss. Where I was like, I know I can target my party. How the fuck do I do it? And it's just like a little text underneath that says RB. Like, okay, that's how I switched to attacking my party. And then yesterday, when my party members fell asleep, I was like, I'm just gonna attack them, and that took them from full health down to like half health. I was like, fuck, that's not good.
Yeah, that was always the double-edged sword in other ones. So you could do it, but do you really want to have to heal them up afterwards?
Yeah, exactly. So I think we probably both agree that the story is picking up. The story is what's sustaining us. I'm having a good time filling out the map, but I don't know, I just think about it in terms of like the engaging part of the game is like kill enemies, and it's just like there's not a lot of puzzles. There was a puzzle in where was it? Was it in the
It was in the Shrine of Miriam
the shrine
with the statues.
Yeah, we had to like face them inward. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I face them outwards, I face them up, I face them like all in the same direction. So I had to keep running around and figuring out which direction to put them. And then that was not like a super satisfying puzzle for me. It was just like trial and error.
Yeah, there was no real even if you read the inscriptions, they didn't really give you.
I didn't get it from the inscription. Yeah, I was like, I don't see what it's telling me here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that with the design system, the game shows its age. Mm-hmm. That, like, the puzzles aren't that difficult most of the time. Like, it's, all in, all out, or all north, right? It's got to be one of those combinations.
Exactly. I was like, there can't be like random, right? They've got to go in the same direction somehow. So I was like, all out, all in. All in, I think, is what did it. So I was like, all right, that's cool. At least it tells you. When you've got it all done, you don't have to like run somewhere else and check it. It just tells you like something in the place has moved.
Yeah. But the other areas where it shows its clunkiness, like one of my pet peeves is I was trying to equip a crossbow on Pinello. It's like, you can't equip this. You can't equip this. I'm like, oh, dude, I have the freaking license for it. What the F? And it won't let you equip it. And I'm assuming it's going to be the same for like bows or guns until you buy the ammo and equip the ammo in their offhand first. But nowhere does it tell you that.
Right.
Which I'm like, come on, man. Like, I get it. If I don't have ammo, they can't use it. But at least let me equip it and then like gray it out in their equip hand or something to let me know that, it's not going to do anything, but it's equipped.
Right, because you think it's some other reason why you can't equip it.
Right.
You're looking at the license board and whatever else.
And then, like, one of my other pet peeves that I came across is just the victory screens. I'm like, holy crap, like, you beat a boss. This victory screen is so freaking long, and it's so boring, and I can't get past it. Or even the mist abilities. Like, okay, I've seen this like 50 times already. Can I please skip it? No. I have to watch it the whole time.
The mist abilities, exactly, because, like, I've chained 10, 12 together, and I'm like, that just means that I just watched 12 minutes of cutscenes that are the same thing over and over again.
Right, and half the time you get the same ability over and over again. It's like, dude, I literally just did this ability. Can we just skip this, please? Anything? No? Shit.
No.
Okay, let me sit here. Like, the battle takes longer because I'm watching the mist abilities, and it actually takes me to kill the freaking boss.
Yep. I agree. I was like, this is a really effective way to take down some of these high health enemies, but boy, is it boring. It is not exciting. That's the thing I think overall is that, at least so far, I'm not turned off of the battle system. I sort of like, pushing into new areas where I need to equip more gambits, like making sure I take sleep off or making sure that I counteract sap with regen, and it kind of makes me think through those things. But then once I set them, that engaging thoughtfulness is kind of over in maybe 3 minutes, and then it's another 4 hours or whatever of the same gambits, the same battles. And I know, like, the thing that I like about it is that you could mainland it and go through and have that experience, but if you stumble across the optional hunts, the optional espers, or you go searching for them, it sort of changes that, and it really shakes up what you need to do to win. And I know that the further you go with the hunts, like, you really, like, you have to be on your game, but to defeat them. But I don't want to do 50 hunts. I don't want to have that experience that many times.
And I will tell you that if you unlock the license boards and have 12, I think it's like 12 or 14, or maybe it's even 15 gambits, I can't remember right now. Like, one of my healers have just this chain of, if this effect is on there, kick it off. Cast this, cast this, cast this. Like, literally. So, like, the sleeps, the blinds, the saps, my characters just automatically bam, 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 bam.
So take them all off.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting there going, okay.
Yep.
Like, literally, it is AFK autopilot on the battles now.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm glad I didn't do the LP one, just because I like... it's a little more engaging because I'm limited, so I have to choose which ones I'm going to do. So it does keep me a little engaged, but, I mean, it's not enough to be like... I can understand why you'd want to not do that, basically.
Yeah, this whole experience has taught me so far that my initial assessment on the combat system is holding true. Freaking, over a decade later, 15, 20 years later, I can't remember when the heck this game first came out.
2006 or 7.
So yeah, almost 20 years later, my initial assumption when I first saw my roommate playing that game back in the day, being like, I pre-ordered this game, I haven't put it in the system, I'm watching you, this is, no. And then never putting that game into my PlayStation 2 ever. And I never even opened it up, for crying out loud. The only thing that I'm upset about is that I've missed out on this story. So for me, waiting to this point and then having that ability to put on the max LP, the max Gil, I'm like, okay, this allows me to get through this game and enjoy the story without having to sit here and get annoyed with the combat.
Yeah, it's something that I'm glad that it's in there, and I wish more games had that were like brand new games, as opposed to, like, a re-release to do that. Is, sometimes people don't want to experience certain parts of a game, so let them kind of blow through that and get to the other stuff that they like. Otherwise, maybe you would never experience a story, or, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it sounds like if we weren't doing this podcast, maybe you wouldn't be experiencing this game.
No, 100%. If I wasn't doing this with you, I would have never played this game.
But I'm wondering, would you stop now if we didn't continue to do the podcast? Are you invested enough in the story that you want to see it through?
I'm on like a knife's edge on that point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, here's the thing, and as I told you earlier, a couple other games have come out in the past week that I'm like, yes, please. Mm-hmm. And those have been drawing what little bit of attention I've had. And then it was like, I put on this thing to where I could just power through, because this whole section that we did, you took, like, I think you said like 5-6 hours to do.
I did, yeah.
I did it in under 3. Like, and I know you and Anthony were like, oh my god, you're going for the speed run. I was like, no, like, that ship sailed a long fucking time ago. I'm nowhere near a speed running. I'm just trying to get through the next story bit as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And as more games come out, my ability to... This would be one of those situations where if we weren't doing this, yeah, no rest for the wicked or Celeblade would have totally knocked this off. And I'd be like, yep, peace, I'm out.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you're able to get through it quickly. I feel like I'm enjoying it more than you are.
Yes.
But there's... I still take your criticism. I still see your criticism of it, because it is not super engaging, the bits between the story, other than, for some reason, I think we talked about it before with other games, but like the thrill of the completionist of, like, filling out the map. But then you fill out the map and you found a couple of pots that have some interesting stuff in them, but for the most part they don't. They have, like, 12 gil or whatever. It's a relic of its time, but the story is just so wild, and I feel like we're at the point where we've defeated the Stilshrine of Miriam together. You have that one boss fight to go, and then you'll be done with it completely. But but then moving on to Arcades, I've already moved on to the next piece, and the story bits that come there. There's like a 2-minute cutscene between Balthier and Ash. It's just like blew my mind. I was like, oh, fuck, okay. And so there's starting to be more. Now that I'm way further along and have like a bigger schema for the story, it's starting to make a lot more sense. So every twist and turn is like more impactful. So I'm stoked to continue with the story. And the gameplay is very secondary.
Yeah, see, hearing, so this goes back to the other thing we've had in the chat where I told you to stop putting spoiler shit on stuff on there because I click it off anyways. And we had the conversation about names. I'm like, I don't consider telling me like, oh, this, like, the names don't mean anything to me. Al Cid might have been the one minor exception, but even then, it wouldn't have really sunk in with me because I just remember there being a Cid. I don't remember what his first name was or because it wasn't just Cid. He had something else on his name.
Dr. Cid, you mean?
Yeah, was it just Dr. Cid?
Which one? There's Dr. Cid and then
Cid. The evil Cid.
Dr. Cid, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just knew he was like a doctor and his name was Cid, and I don't remember what the rest of. So if he said Al Cid, I would have been like, okay, maybe that's the original Cid. But anyways, so I was like, don't even bother. But then you kind of talking like, oh my god, the story's really ramping up. I'm like, okay, I just got to get through this bit, and then I'm going to be rewarded with what I'm really after. So
I hope so. And again, my criticism is still like, for me, the most interesting cutscene has happened after the part where you're at in the next piece, and it was about 2 minutes long.
Yeah,
and that's typically not enough for me. Like 2 minutes of like, it's like the reward, right? Like you get through some of the rote or boring parts to get to a really great story, and then the boring parts were like 2 hours, and then the story is 2 minutes. Like that's just not quite enough, and it's not boring in like it's painful to do, but running through like on the road to Arcades, a lot of the beach areas, the Fawn Coast, it's kind of samey and the same enemies, and it's just like the numbers go up, and that's just not enough for me to be super engaged.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say about having 2 more cutscenes is you gotta dance that fine line. So the reason why I say that is, this was 2006, 2002. Because I purposely looked it up. I do not remember this off the top of my head, by the way. Xenosaga Episode 1 was released, and again, that was a game that I didn't get very far in it because the first 2.5 hours of the game that I played, I watched 2 hours of cutscenes.
Right.
And I was like, dude, when do I get to actually play the freaking game? So to the point where I just stopped playing it because I was tired of, like, I would literally walk around for 2 minutes and then there would be a 20-minute cutscene. I'm just like, are you kidding me? So,
right. Do you want to be a movie or a game?
Right. Pick a lane. And then now this has the exact opposite effect where it's like, and again, I think this goes back to the time when it was released. They're trying not to go too far one way, and people's tastes were changing, and this was a completely different freaking combat system. So I think they wanted to focus more on that system than they did the cutscenes, because prior to this, if you play like Final Fantasy X or 9 or 8 or 7, like all of those, the cutscenes would be longer when they happened, but the combat system was pretty much the same. There was little tweaks here and there, like materia for magic, the draw system in 8, et cetera, the predetermined classes for each character in 9, or was that the other way around? 9. No,
I haven't
9.
played 9, so I don't know.
9 was where they were all predetermined what their classes were. 8 was where they had the draw system. So, but it was still turn-based combat. It was like, okay, it's this character's turn, pick their action. Timer runs. Okay, next character's turn, pick the action. This was the first time where they completely done something different, so I think they probably wanted to put more of the focus on that than the cutscenes. My assumption.
I think that makes sense because they were playing with this new system, so kind of putting it front and center.
Yeah.
And there are certainly people who love RPGs. I mean, people love RPGs for lots of different reasons. Some people really like the story, including long cutscenes or tons and tons of fucking reading. And some people just love numbers go up. and min-maxing, a setup, or, fucking with the license board here, or the jobs, or, the sphere grid in 10, or, thinking about skill trees in Diablo or whatever. There's lots of reasons people come to RPGs or even create them. But yeah, I think it sounds right that this system was so unique. I forget what it was called, active dimension battle, or whatever they called it. That maybe, it's sort of like when an author is writing a story and they just love one character so much that that character is in a lot of stuff, when really that character could have been toned down a little bit and let other characters shine, or other pieces of this game shine. And the length too. The story, usually I feel like lengths of games elongate because they want to tell this really rich story, but I feel like the story is being spread thinly over this very long game experience. Like, this could be in my view, probably a 30-hour game with this story, and maybe be told a little bit tighter.
I mean, I would like that better, just because I don't like the combat system. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, cutting out those long stretches of like getting from point A to point B where the next story thing is, and you're just, I think having the balance. We need you to level up so you can be strong enough for the next enemy. We probably could have cut some of this big, open, expansive area where there's nothing happening besides you attacking, fucking snakes and finding jars around.
Although I will admit that in the shrine, I was able to hit that 50 chain, now that I know what the freak it was.
Oh, you got it in the shrine?
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
In the shrine, there's those zombies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was just going through that section, and it's like, I'm at 35. And I'm like, okay.
Let's go.
Let me just walk back through it real quick. And I ran back through it, and I was like, bam, bam, bam. Yay, there's your trophy. I'm like, sweet. Okay, let's move forward.
That's cool.
Now that I know what the chain was.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's the same enemy, or the same type of enemy, I suppose it is.
Yeah. So, but what level are your characters right now, to curiosity?
33 or 34.
Okay.
What about you?
What level do you think you were when you came out of the shrine, roughly?
Oh, probably 30.
Oh, okay. I'm 27.
Oh, wow. I'm ahead of you finally? God.
Well, I mean, you've got a few more hours in the game.
Yeah.
But
I was previously you were over my level, but have played fewer hours, so I'm surprised a little bit. But yeah, I was about 30 when I came out of the shrine, and then that's why I was surprised when I started going through the road to Arcades. I gained 4 levels just going through those open areas. The levels are coming more quickly than I thought they would for being you needing more EXP to fill up that bar kind of thing.
Well, that's the one thing that I will say. I'm trying to remember older Final Fantasy games. Usually when you're going through the story, they're pretty good as long as you follow the story path, that they keep throwing things at you at a good enough pace and level that, yes, you need more experience to level, but the things that you're killing give you more experience because they're closer to your level.
Yeah.
But then what typically happens is there's a sharp like change when you get off the beaten path. What I mean by either A, the experience falls off a wall because shit's so far below you, or B, you walk into the wrong area and shit just destroys you in seconds.
That's still happening. Like when I wander into the optional areas, I get my ass handed to me really quickly. I was like, okay, I'm glad those places exist here for people who are looking for that. I'm not. I'm ready. 2 reasons. And I think one of them is similar to you. I'm ready to get to the end of the game because I'm ready to move on to the next game or have a different experience. But now that has been fueling me for a while, but now the story and wanting to know where the story is overtaking that a bit, which is nice to finally be there where I'm like, I want to get to the end because I want to know what happens next. And that's why I think I've been speeding through the next section, because I want to know where we're going with the story. And I also want to get there and kind of, move on.
Yeah, I did find one of those oh shit moments when I was going to the shrine, going through the rift. I was like exploring a little bit, and I went off into this one thing, and I walked in this zone. I was like, I saw something walking in the distance. I stopped. I'm like, I'm going to cast Libra on me just because I'm curious. So it just didn't happen to have it on my character at the time. So I cast it, and then I targeted one thing, and I was like, level 48. I'm like going, yep. I'm turning back around right now because I was like level 22 when I did it. I was like, oh shit, yeah, that will destroy me in seconds.
Well, was that optional Esper that I faced was level 36, and I was at that time probably level 27, 28. So it was work to do it, but it wasn't like insurmountable. But maybe a couple more levels it would have been. So yeah, hopefully, hoping to get through the end of the story. I think it feels like the chess pieces are being put on the board and are about to like, I'm hoping are about to like really start kicking off the final section of the story in a way that's really satisfying. I don't know if it will or not. I'm finding that I'm really drawn to Ash, Bosch, and then to a lesser extent Baltier and Fran, although Baltier just stepped up as pretty interesting in the next section that you're going to get to. But Vaughn and Pinello are just like blah, nothing in this story to me.
I mean, I go back to what we said one of the first episodes where, and now as the story's going on, first I think we said like Vaughn is just the player and they're just the way that we see the rest of the story. But I've kind of come to the realization that it's Vaughn and Pinello both are two sides of that same coin. They're just the players looking in and watching it from the outside. And the real players in this are Ash, Bosch, Fran, and Baltier, as well as all the other characters, obviously, that we don't control. But by way of our party, it's those four are the main characters, and Pinello and Vaughn are just the vessels by which we watch the rest of it through.
Exactly. And it's fine. I don't need something from everyone in terms of the story, but it is a little interesting to follow 6 characters where 2 of them, in my view, are like tops, really interesting stuff happening. 2 are sort of mid-tier, and 2 are nothing. Like, I feel like there's lost opportunity there. And the interesting thing about Baltier and Fran is we had that piece with Fran where we went to the Eyrut or whatever village where all the Vieira live, and I felt like that should have opened up a lot of understanding of who she is and should have been emotionally resonant, but I didn't find it that interesting. Like, okay, she lives with the humans now, and her sisters want her to stay exiled. I don't know. Would you?
Well, I mean, to me, the only difference I would say there is you kind of get to wait for what she coughed up. Like she literally gave up everything.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like the old Yeller moment, right? Where it was like, no, get out of here, go away, I don't love you anymore, type thing that she had to do to her sisters to get her to like not follow in her footsteps. Because if she hadn't done that, Mjorn would have followed her.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting to see that. Could there have been more to it? Maybe, but I think that was done intentional because at the same time, you just get a new respect. I personally got a new respect for Fran in that situation, and I kind of feel like if they put too much more emphasis on it, it would take it away. It would have felt like it was shoehorned in with everything else going on in the greater scheme.
Yeah, I like that. I like that take. I think that helps me with that piece specifically because it's kind of been standing out to me as a little bit like a lost opportunity. But the storytelling has been super economical. Like, it really is like dense and short, but there's a lot there. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing in the story that so far has irked me, it's so minor, but I feel like it keeps cropping up. It's just how trusting characters are given the situation. So, like, when we went to go to the Gareth Village, it was like, oh, I saw you fighting on the plains. I trust you now.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what?
You're a strong warrior.
Seriously? That's all it's going to take? Then why'd you let Larson? Because you know his ass didn't fight his way across the plains, but you trust him. And then, hey, wait, this is the son of the Emperor of the Empire that's destroyed your freaking kingdom. You know it.
Why are you letting him in your party?
But you trust him.
Yep.
Right? And like in every situation, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to trust you because I don't know, you're trustworthy all of a sudden for no reason, even though you're literally the son of my enemy. You did me a solid one time. You didn't know who I was. I didn't know who you were. Now we know who each other is. Maybe I shouldn't trust your ass anymore.
Yeah, I do find that interesting with Larsa. there's not a lot of interrogation of that relationship or those motivations. It just feels like it's you are left to suspend disbelief and trust us.
And it's not just there. I mean, to some degree, even Bosch makes some comment about not trusting him, but not trusting Balthier, but he's a good hand or something along those lines. I'm sitting going, if you didn't trust him, then you wouldn't be letting him lead you around from time to time. You wouldn't just be following around. You wouldn't let him in on all these conversations that basically will decide the fate of your old kingdom.
Right.
But yet you do. So, and I'm trying to think. So instead of played the other Final Fantasy games, like, was this always a thing? But right now, it just stands out to me how often the trust is just there for the sake of the story to move it forward.
Even with that Al Cid moment where, Lars's plan is to have you two wed, and Ash is like, nah, not gonna do that. And there wasn't really any repercussion from Larsa to be like, what? This is what I wanted. You're not gonna follow my plan? Then fuck off.
No, part of that was Al Cid telling the story about the Emperor being killed, because that's when we find out about the Emperor being killed.
Yeah,
so Al Cid was like, yeah, even if we do it, it doesn't do us any good because your brother's in charge right now and he's not going to give a shit. He wants war.
Yeah.
So I think there Larsa kind of got that. But at the same time, it's like, maybe Larsa knows Al Cid better, so therefore he trusts that he's telling him the truth that his father has actually been murdered.
Right. As opposed to a plot device.
Right.
Like, I have to believe him because we need the player to believe this and move the story along.
Right. I don't know. I just, at every step of the way, there's just, I'm going to trust you. Okay. You have zero reason to trust this person. But it's like the MacGuffin. It's like, okay, this is what needs to move the story forward. So here's the MacGuffin of trust.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I feel like there's enough. Like, I think it's because I like politics, like the political intrigue, all that stuff is enough. If I feel like someone who didn't like that so much, it would be even harder to follow. Not want to follow. I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna say everything else about the story is amazing. It was like, yes, I want to watch it. I want to know, but just I don't know. Every once in a while, when I even have as my note, I was like, the Gareth are very trusting for no reason. It was my note. Like the second I got to that point, I was like, why?
We need you to talk to the elders. Prove yourself. Oh no, we saw you battling. You're amazing. We're good.
Yeah. Okay. And then the more I thought about it as I was talking to you about it right now, I was like, well, wait a second. There's so many times where this little thing, it happens, and it does. I notice it, but don't notice it at the moment. I think the Gareth was just so blatant. Like the other said, we don't trust Humes, and then you really trust this Hume after 2 seconds. So I was like, wait, that doesn't compute. And so I
feel like that was
stood out.
Yeah, and I almost felt like it was at a less intense level in the Eyrut Village, where it was like, we don't want Humes here. Get out of here. Well, I'm staying here. I need to find the sister. Okay, we'll tell you where she is. Like, okay.
Yeah, another situation where it's like, okay.
Wasn't as much friction as I thought there would be.
Right. But again, the rest of the story is interesting enough to where I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't notice it half the time, or more than half the time I don't notice it. But every once in a while, the trusting just pops up. And I'm like,
Yeah, and I think the rest of the story has the potential to kind of not salvage is too strong of a word, but like really bring this home. And I'm hoping it does, and I don't know if it will because I don't know what's coming next, but I'm hoping. So I guess we'll see.
I hope so too, because Anthony loves this game so much. I'm sitting there going, okay, it's not for me it's not the combat, so please be something else. Because usually when Anthony loves an RPG, he and I tend to be somewhat similar on the page of like, yeah, this is awesome. But right now I'm sitting there going, the story's got to get me, man, because this is the rest of it is just not there.
Yeah, he certainly likes the story. I do also think he likes the crunchiness of really working on the gambit system for the hunts, for the optional content. So because we're mainly sticking to, and I've seen that by diverting, but because we've mainly stuck to the main path, I feel like it's diminished the enjoyment of that, for sure.
Maybe, but
for me at least,
yeah, fair. For me, I don't even think the hunts are going to change the fact that the combat system to me is just not there. But
Yeah, with the hunts and the higher level espers and whatever else, it becomes more tactical, where I've really got to think through what's being done to me, what I have. But once you have everything, either everything unlocked or once you have that puzzle figured out, then it snaps to the okay, it just plays, it auto plays. It's auto. This is the original auto chess, and this is going through on its own.
What's a game called AFK Dungeon or something like that? Or
Yeah, I haven't heard of that, but I can understand the concept.
yeah, there's some mobile game that's like AFK RPG or something. AFK Dungeon. Yeah.
It's all like the auto clickers, right?
I mean, most of them are now. Yeah, it's called. Oh, holy crap! It is called AFK Dungeon. Idle Action RPG.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Those idle clickers are a thing for sure. And this is not that level, but they're certainly tending toward that. It's an interesting attempt, but I don't know if we've gone back to this. I know Unicorn Overlord has shades of this. I've played about 8 hours of that this year, and there is some of that as well. So I don't think you'd enjoy that either.
I mean, that's kind of what I feel like the industry has gone to as a whole. Because here's the other thing, right? When I was younger and played video games, I had all the time in the world. So obviously having those old school turn-based, here's 60 hours worth of story in the game, and hey, here's another 60 to 100 hours of side quest shit. I was like, yes, please. Nowadays, you and I have had this conversation before. It's like, okay, sweet. I'm going to start the 60-hour game, and I'll be lucky if I see 20 of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense that nowadays things have gone a lot more auto to where you can kind of you can get the story without having to really invest your time in it because the game does most of the work for you.
Yeah, I think there's the idea that if a game it pushes back against you too much, people will put it down.
Yeah.
I think we've seen all the stats where like the majority of people play a game through like the first trophy and then they don't play after that or whatever. And most people don't finish games, et cetera, et cetera. So, but this is certainly a project. Getting through this, I am certainly enjoying pieces of it. Other things I'm less so, and I think that's probably the same for you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Next time our plan right now is to move through, if you're following the Neo Seeker Guide, the Road to Arcades Part 1 and Part 2, and then the Imperial City Arcades through to the Draklord Laboratory. That's the next really big story chunk. So we're going to try to get through there for the next podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend, rate us on your podcast service of choice, check out the main feed, Prof and Dev Play Games, and we'll be back next week with more Final Fantasy XII.